Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice, brought to you by Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And today we're talking about secondary characters. Those ones who are not the first one.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad description.
We'll
talk about that later.
We've got a quote.
Ooh.
Respect your characters, even the minor ones. In art, as in life, everyone is the hero of their own particular story. It is worth thinking about what your minor character stories are, even though they may intersect only slightly with your protagonists.
And that's by Sarah Waters.
Yeah. And that's pretty much our advice. Everyone, thanks for tuning in.
That's it. Nice, clean, short episode for you. This week.
No, that is more or less the gist of our advice today, though, is like, the first thing is that everyone has their own characters. Secondary characters should be as well-rounded as your primary characters, even though you don't get to see them as much. So do that and then balance it.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
So that's the
end. If our advice, we're pretty much going to boil down to that today.
Right.
But we're going to go through, like, a little bit more specific stuff. If you just wanted a Cliff Notes version, though, that's it. We've got it.
We put your spark notes right at the beginning. Secondary characters, as defined in character types by ufl.edu.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that stands for, but I'm gonna guess it's a university. So secondary characters populate your world and help to move the story along. There's two main subclasses of secondary characters, which is supporting characters and minor characters. I would read more, but it's not there.
Nice.
So,
alright.
We'll just define it ourselves. That's fine. So secondary characters are like your character's sidekick.
Yeah.
Like, they're there for a majority of the story and help to sort of just move things along, while they can have their own sort of sub-arcs.
They're your Samwises.
Yeah.
Or your Sam Tarleys.
Or your,
They're your Sams.
They're your Sam.
You've got a character named Sam.
Yeah, honestly, it's just Sam. So
I can hear the shadow of the Supernatural fans typing angrily at us.
Oh no! The Supernatural fans don't like us.
Oh, what will we ever do?
What will we do? But yeah, so secondary characters are the ones that are with your character, help them along, have their own little sub-arcs, and sort of are consistently relevant to your character.
They're all named Sam.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, take note. Everyone else is a minor character.
Yeah.
No, minor characters are characters that show up, like, once,
mm-hmm.
and do a thing, and then they're gone. So this is like a shopkeeper, or like somebody that comes along and like gives you mystical information and then is never seen from again. Yeah, that sort of thing. Those characters are not named Sam. Usually.
They're named Cecil Jacobs, specifically.
Oh.
There's my reference for you for the day.
Well, good thing I didn't get it.
There you go. That's the,
mm-hmm.
That's the school kid from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh.
Yeah.
Relevant.
Yeah.
As it turns out.
Timely.
Relevant and timely. You never have to ask for anything else from Kat. But yeah, so that's sort of our base thing. So I guess we should talk about more in depth.
We should talk about,
do you want to talk about Sam's?
Yeah, I want to talk about Sam's. No, specifically, I want to talk about just kind of fleshing out your main character, or your main character.
Uh-huh.
There should be a little bit of a balance between there, because it's one of those things you should spend more time on your main characters, because we're going to be seeing them a lot more they drive the story forward. They're the ones that need to be they need to evoke the most empathy.
Right.
But you can't completely neglect the secondary characters. So somewhere in your planning process, if you plan ahead, or somewhere in your editing process, if you have to fix a lot of stuff because you did not plan ahead, which isn't like a dig, that's how I do things also. It's just a fact, because that's how it goes.
It's just how things work.
The more outlining you do, the less editing you have to do, and that's how it works. But if you, somewhere in your process, you need to take some time to figure out what's going on in the life of your secondary character, and it doesn't always have to be really fleshed out, but it can be. It's something that I would recommend spending a little bit of time doing. One thing that I like to do for my own work is I like to do, like, flash fiction, or, like, maybe even AU fiction sometimes for, like, my secondary characters. And something that I do in collaborations, this is why we have the NPC reference sheet available on our site for free. But that's something that I did with the Adventures collaborations, because there was, like, the first ever draft of the Adventures book was kind of a nightmare, because all of the NPCs, like, they were made on the spot, and they were just, like, random stuff. There was a lot of conflicting information on the podcast, and Ben didn't have anything in mind specifically for them, so trying to ask questions was a nightmare at first. But then we came up with the NPC reference sheet, and I used that for literally every character that you see in the Adventures book.
Honest to
has,
God.
like, a full... Alan did the illustrations. We got some descriptions, like 50-50 descriptions from Ben.
Right.
And they all have, like... I didn't do full fleshed out backstories for all of them, but I did, like, a little bit of flash fiction right there on the sheet for every single secondary character that you see in the Adventures novelization. Because it just helps.
Right, it just sort of helps you know how this person would act in their time on screen.
And, like, differentiate between mannerisms across. So it's easier for the audience to keep them straight, even if they're not going to be there for very long. So those are some of the tricks that I use. Do you have any tricks for...
See, my problem is I always end up fleshing out my secondary characters so much. I mean, like, I do a lot of music stuff for mine. Like, I have playlists upon playlists upon playlists of stuff for characters, and that includes, like, main characters, and it includes, like, secondary characters. Like, right now I'm working on NPCs for my D&D campaign, and we're sort of going to, I think, towards, like, it's a town that's, like, it's like a mafia town. So I'm setting it sort of, like, in 1920s ish, like, that's the kind of influence. So I've been listening to a lot of swing music lately, and that's sort of what I've been using to sort of influence the behavior of their main NPC that they're gonna meet. So, like, music is always my first thing. It's like when I'm working to develop a character, I'm like, where's the song? What's that song I can think about him to? And I do that a lot. And then I guess as far as, like, designing goes, generally when I'm designing a secondary character, I don't want them to stand out as much as the main character does. So if they're a minor character, they don't really have to have a super unique design. They just sort of have to, you know, fit the role. For a secondary character that's with the protagonist, I try to make them a little more interesting, but nothing too complicated that's going to distract. And then my main characters are usually where the most superfluous stuff is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of where I go for stuff. I sort of prioritize who they are in the story and then design them accordingly.
And this is something, there is such a thing as overdeveloping, which...
Don't look at me!
I'm not trying to call you out. That's not... Because it's okay to have them, like, overdeveloped. You just... Again, it's an editing issue. Because if you have too much secondary character stuff, in the story, then they cease to be a secondary character and they become more of a distraction.
Right.
And it's okay for... There are instances, where, like, a secondary character can evolve into a main character later on in a series. But if you need them to be a secondary character at the time when they're there and they are, like, going off on monologues and you're learning about their tragic past all the time, it's like, this is a distraction.
Right.
And not a... and it's not helpful. One series that I think, if you can imagine me talking about this, I'm going to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire.
Whoa!
Because it's easy... When you're working on a project that has, like, a really big cast, there are so many main characters.
Oh my god.
And there are indicators, obviously, for, like, who is and isn't. Like, there are a couple of rules of thumb where it's, like, if they have a bastard name and they're not Jon Snow, they're probably a secondary character.
Right.
Or if they have, like, if they're a lower house and... they're not Jon Snow. No.
Oh my god, Jon Snow! Jon Snow's not even a lower house
character.
anymore. You can't even say that.
I know. He's not even a Snow anymore, honestly. I can't say
He's
any
not
of that.
even real!
His name's not Jon. I hate this.
Jon Snow is just a fucking lie, actually. It sucks because Jon Snow is better than his real name.
It's so much better. But anyway. So, like, there are indicators, but... especially in, like, the first book, because you've got everyone's, like, from a major house, and then also, like, if they tend not to have chapters of their own, then they're probably a secondary character, because all of the really important people
have chapters.
You've got Daenerys chapters and Jon Snow chapters, and who else do we even care about, right?
Right.
Like, no. And it's really interesting because it's like, that doesn't quite line up with the show. Like, Rob doesn't have chapters.
Oh.
We don't need Rob around.
Don't say that.
Well, it's true. Because he's been gone and...
I'm sad.
No, but, like, there are indicators, but then, like, Brienne is, like, a secondary character for a long time. And then suddenly... you get to book 3 and, like, there's the prologue, and I think after that Brienne might have the first chapter of the book, and it was a cool thing because it's like, now here we are and Brienne's a main character now. Like, she had evolved up to that point, and it was kind of the same way in the show.
Yeah,
she wasn't, like, super important when she first showed up, and then it was like, hey,
wait, she's important.
But she was good as a secondary character, too.
Right.
But we didn't... And the point that I want to make here, what I've been building up to with all of my Brienne and Jon Snow discussion here, is that...
so specific.
Is that Brienne has, like... we get to see... The first time that you meet Brienne, she's trying out for a place in Renly's Kingsguard. And she gets it, because she's just, like, a cool fighter. And she's, like, the only... woman equivalent of a knight in Westeros.
Right.
So she stands out and she's cool, and we like her even as, like, a minor character, but we don't know why she was fighting. We don't know why she wants to team up with Renly. We don't, like, we have no information about Brienne, but she's cool and she does her job and she moves the story forward. And that's fine. She does good at it. But then, like, I think in Storm of Swords, and season 5 or 6, it's pretty late. It's later in the show than it is in the books, but we finally, like, Pod is talking to her. Pod is one of my all-time favorite secondary characters.
Oh my god, Pod.
Just as a side note, Pod's great. But we see Pod talking to Brienne, and it's after, like, Brienne has already become a main part of the story that we find out why she was trying to follow Renly. And it's, like, years after he's been gone. She's followed 2 other people. She's, like, pledged her service to 2 other people. This is, like, several iterations down that we finally learn Brienne's backstory enough to understand why it was that she wanted to follow Renly Baratheon and why she wanted to be a fighter in the first place. And it's good, because before then, it wasn't really any of our business, you know?
Right.
Like, this wasn't a character that we needed to have that much information about, but it was, like, a nice... Getting that little bit of backstory at an appropriate time was a good point for Brienne, and it was nice.
Right, it sort of led up to... You sort of earned the backstory when it became relevant to have the backstory.
Right. And not before then, because before then it would have been, if you had learned right before, when she'd been introduced, if she was like, here I am, and this is why I'm following Renly, here's my life story, you would have been like, what? And then Renly would have died, and you would have been like, so it didn't matter, none of it mattered.
Right, so none of this matters.
And it would have been an information dump in the middle of a war with 5 kings in it, and it would have been, like, it was so convoluted anyway. That would have just been detrimental to the pacing.
It's so hard to figure out what's going on in Game of Thrones anyway. Like, shit, man, I guess.
But yeah, and then there are characters that, like, you know you're never gonna know more about.
Right.
But you are just happy collecting interesting tidbits. And I think Pod's really good. There are so many interesting tidbits about Pod dropped along in the show and in the books, but you know you're never going to know more than you do about Pod.
Right.
Really. He's a sex prodigy. And I like it.
That's right, I forgot that was, like, his thing.
That's like, he's like this awkward, nerdy squire, and then just also...
Sex prodigy.
Sex prodigy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good.
God fucking.
He's also related to Ilan Payne, which I think everyone forgets about.
I don't know who that is even.
He's the guy that executes Ned Stark.
Oh right.
He's like that creepy
bad
guy. He's Pod's uncle.
Oh, bad. Real bad.
But good for Pod. Because he turned out better.
He did turn out better. Thank God. Not that it was hard.
What if Ilan Payne had been the sex prodigy, and they had just thrown that in there? I would have hated that.
It would have been real bad for his minor character that he is.
Like, he doesn't have a tongue, and he's creepy, and also...
You can't be a sex prodigy if you don't have a tongue. I don't think that's how that works.
Ilan Payne is offended.
Good. Fuck you. This has gotten to a weird place.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. But
it's okay.
Sprinkle in, like, random facts that are appropriate for the tone you're trying to set for that character.
Also,
think about what you're naming your character. Maybe don't name them... Oh god, what was that guy's name?
Huh? That's so not specific.
Okay. I'm gonna look up a thing.
Okay.
You make your next point.
Oh, I was just gonna talk about, when you're doing, secondary characters, and so this is on the topic of learning their backstories, I guess, generally you're just gonna want to learn about them as the story progresses. Because you don't need to have just like a random information dump out of nowhere to give their whole backstory. It can just like come along as you're exploring with it. So I'm thinking about, in Diablo 3, your companions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about like the scoundrel, because everyone loves him. He's the best companion.
Lyndon.
But so it starts off and it's like, you, rescue him from these people and like, he's like talking to this girl and he's like, yes, we're going to run away and get married. I just have to go with my friends here and get some stuff. And he goes with you and, you're like, don't you have to go back for her? And he's like, what? No. Not going back there. Can't do that. And so it's like, it starts you off on this, like, oh, he's one of those dudes, sort of thing. But then as the story progresses, you get more and more of his backstory.
Yeah.
And, like, how he became the scoundrel and, like, why he's the way he is. And it's, like, it's real nice because it's sort of... And also, the nice thing in games is sometimes it's optional. Like, you don't have to learn any of this about the scoundrel at all.
Right.
Like, you don't even have to talk to him, really, if you don't want to. But if you do want to, like, you can, go along and click through his stuff, and you can find out all his backstory and stuff like this. And then you can be sad in Act 5.
Yeah. That's an option, regardless of what you do. Is you can be sad in Act 5 if you so choose.
That's just what Act 5 is for, is the be sad.
Yeah.
After I was supposed to be sad in Act 4, but I wasn't.
That's fine.
I don't care about Leia.
I've
said it before, I'll say it again. I don't care about her.
That's fine. That's correct.
Sometimes your secondary characters are bad.
Yeah.
Like Leia.
Mm-hmm.
I guess she's sort of a main character, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean...
Yeah, cinematically,
she's the main character, I guess. I'm important.
Real fast.
I'm the one who will bring the recognition. What?
I looked up that guy's name. And I'm gonna hop back on my point real fast. Be careful about what you name your secondary characters. Pick a name that is appropriate for the tone that you want to set for your secondary characters. Because there's a character in A Song of Ice and Fire who's supposed to be mysterious and shady, and his name is Dick Crab. And his nickname is worse because it's Nimble Dick. So if you thought that was gonna be a mysterious name, George R.R. Martin, you fucked up, because his name is Nimble Dick, and I'm never gonna forgive you for that. Just throwing it out there.
This Dick Crab?
Yeah.
No!
Yeah.
No!
It's bad.
That can't be right!
It's correct.
Oh, how terrible. Frankly.
Dick Crab, better known as Nimble Dick, is a former soldier originally from Crack Claw Point. So just make of all of that what
He's a sex joke. That's what he is. He's not a secondary character.
Like, he was relevant to the plot, though. Later on. His
name was Nimble Dick. So he can get the fuck out of here.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah, please don't ever name your character Nimble Dick. Just like as a principal, don't do that.
Yeah. Or like if you have like a joke character who has like a joke name, that's fine.
Yeah, you can just have a joke character, George R.R. Martin.
Maybe you shouldn't have been the same character as like your mysterious guide guy, but that's fine. Mysterious guide guys also we should talk about.
Yes.
We should talk about like our because this is also one of the dangers of overdeveloping secondary characters, is because sometimes characters should be mysterious.
Right.
Sometimes we want mysterious characters.
Right.
And it's fine if you know their backstories, but sometimes we just want things. And backstories can be a part of that. And I think we've talked about this before, but like that was one of my big issues with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh my God.
That they got like super into why Willy Wonka was the way that he was. And it was one of those things, like, as a kid, I kind of wanted that. But as an adult, it was like, maybe I should have just kept wanting that and never seeing it.
Maybe seeing it was worse.
Yeah, because it took some of the intrigue out.
Right. Suddenly he wasn't this weird, eccentric dude. He was like a weird dude with daddy issues.
Yeah.
And I didn't need that, actually. Tim Burton.
Also, like, the Karate Kid remake.
Huh?
Was really bad about that.
I can't say anything about that.
They kept talking about Willy Wonka, and I'm like, please don't.
They were like, hey, you know me, I'm like Willy Wonka. I got some serious daddy issues. Don't say that out loud, please.
That's what it says on, like, a dating profile.
Real terrible, right? Like, just the worst.
Just bad.
Hate it so much.
But yeah, be careful. Like, don't get too much into stuff.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Especially when your character is named Willy Wonka or Nimble Dick.
Yeah.
Because as it turns out, things are okay.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Also, like, sassy characters are great.
I love them.
They're good. They're one of, I think, the only characters who can get away with, where you can get away with information dumping, like, in their backstory.
Right.
Because, like, Lady Olenna shows up.
Uh-huh.
And is like, here's everything about me, like, right off the bat. But she gets away with it. Because she's sassy.
Because she's like, I'm going to tell you everything. It doesn't feel forced.
Right.
It's like, this is a sassy old woman, and you know you're gonna listen to her.
And it's written so flawlessly into her manner of speaking, because she just goes off on these long tangents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in the book especially, Sansa comes up and meets her, and she's like, I told my son that we shouldn't have been involved with this war, but he didn't listen to me because this is how I brought him up, and it was wrong. My parents didn't bring me up that way, and I grew up to be a lot smarter than my son. Now my son is following in my late husband's footsteps, because my late husband was an idiot. He rode off a cliff because he wasn't paying attention to where he was going, and now my son is doing the same thing, except for instead of riding a horse, he's riding a lion. Wish he wouldn't. And it's like, oh.
Damn.
And then everyone like doesn't know what to say, so she just keeps going, and she's like, and here's why we're all doomed, and Joffrey's the worst, and I'm the only one who can say that. And it's like, nice.
I respect that.
She could have just, like, honestly, she could have just gone through literally her entire life story, and you would listen to it because it's Lady Olenna.
Because it's good.
Yeah. Just good.
Yeah, there are certain characters that, like, just happen to go on long tangent things, and there's a way to write that that's very good.
Yeah.
And there's also ways to write it that's very bad, like when it's just boring. You don't want it to be boring.
No.
Because that's no good for anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do we want to talk about, like, minor characters for a hot second?
Sure.
Like, really minor characters, like the people you meet, like, once.
Okay.
They should also have some sort of substance to them. Usually, in my experience with minor characters, you're sort of just trying to, you want them to get their one job done,
mm-hmm.
And otherwise you just want to have them to help build the setting of the world,
mm-hmm.
In my experience. Because as it turns out, they don't need to, that's literally the only reason why they're there.
Yeah.
You don't need to, they have one job to do, there's no reason to over-expound that job.
Right.
It's fine.
It is as important as it is, and you can hint that they have other stuff going on, but that's not the story that we're on.
Right. So there's one guard in Adventures. It's the guard from the first fight.
Yeah.
Who just, like, gets down there and is like, oh man, I gotta draw a picture of this dog.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's literally what he does.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing we remember him for.
Yeah.
Which is so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why, I understand Franza's very charming. You very specifically need to draw a picture of Franza.
Yeah.
And you know why, perhaps.
I know why.
But the reader...
Never
does
will.
not need to know. I don't need to know.
Yeah.
It was a funny goof. And that's it. Sometimes things are just funny goofs.
His name is Detargent. Yeah.
Mm.
It's Nipple Dick.
Fuck! Get him out of here!
Yeah.
But yeah, so minor characters have one job. Let them do it. Let them build the world. Let them go.
Yes. And it's something that Game of Thrones is a little bit guilty of, because, like, in the show, they amalgamate characters to the point that they're almost unrecognizable. So if there are, like, 6 minor characters who do a thing, who each do one single thing in the books, the show will be like, what if we made that all the same person and then go into, like, a tangent about how they're able to be in all these places, because it's, like, one character, and it's like, huh.
You don't need to do that.
And, like, sometimes it works out better than other times, I think. Like, Roz was pretty cool in the show, and she was, like, an amalgamation of people, and that was fine. But, like, Shay came off a little crazy sometimes, because she was, like, filling in different parts of the books.
She was doing things.
Because, like, there was a Shay in the books who was doing stuff, but then, like, they're like, but what if our Shay in the show also does this and this and this? And it's like, they wrote out a lot of the really interesting one-time minor characters that you see. so that we could know everybody's name.
And it's like, I don't need to know everybody's name. I already don't know everybody's name.
In the books, there was a character I really liked named Shataya, and we get to see, like, they talk about her every now and then, but you really only meet her once. But she was, like, really cool. And then, in the show, she was also Roz, which also maybe is whitewashing? Is that where we're at on that?
I do not have any room to speak on Game of Thrones whitewashing.
Alright. Well, because, like, she's one of, like, the only... We only get to see her, like, once in the book, but she's, like, one of the only black characters in King's Landing. And then they just, like, gave her job to Roz in the show. So it's like, huh.
Awkward.
Maybe don't do that.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. Because Game of Thrones is already pretty white.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about.
Today.
The point is, Shataya was good, and I miss her.
Sometimes, it's funny, because sometimes minor characters are, like, people's favorite parts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hard-pressed to find a time when a main character is my favorite character. Because I just like the Chaos Boys. I think part of it is because I like to do stuff with characters. Having a secondary character or a minor character who doesn't have as much explained about them is sort of more interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is something I can really latch onto and blah 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 blah. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, favorite secondary characters.
Favorite secondary characters. You go first. Give me a second.
There's the guy in Buffy who shows up in people's dreams for, like, that one episode. The Cheese Man.
Oh, the Cheese Man!
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I wear the cheese. The cheese does not wear me. And then we don't get any explanation for what that was.
Just sort of happened.
That was just a thing that did in fact happen. But he was fun.
He definitely just fucking happened. Didn't he?
Uh-huh. Yeah. He sure did.
Sometimes that's just how it is, though.
Ed Sheeran from Game of Thrones. My favorite minor character.
My favorite character was Ed Sheeran when he was there in Game of Thrones.
Hot take.
I feel so trolled right now. I'm trying to think, because I'm trying to figure out if this character is like a secondary or a main character. Oh! I have a better idea. Because I wanted to talk about Castlevania. Because I finally finished Castlevania, and it was great. Watch Netflix Castlevania, if you haven't already. So one of Dracula's forgemen is named Hector, and I love him.
Hector's good.
Hector is so good. He's like this poor, innocent necromancer dude, but he's like really simple and naive, and he just, he mostly, like, tries to bring pets back to life, because he's really just very childish, because he never really got to grow up that much, so he has, like, a bunch of, like, undead pets, and that's sort of how he sees raising, minions for Dracula's army as his pets, but he's just really fun, because you do get sort of an insight into his backstory and why he wants to help destroy humanity, and stuff like that. And he ends up in his own sub-arc where he gets tricked and he fucks up and it's bad for him, and I need season 3 to come out so I know that Hector's okay. Okay? I love him.
Alright.
So that's Hector.
Nice.
And I love him. He's great. Who else? Who else are my favorite side characters in things?
I don't know.
What do I like?
Oh,
Kat?
God. Every week.
Every week, I don't know what I like. That's just facts.
I also want to toss in, while you brainstorm things you like.
Fuck.
Mr. Jenna Maroney is one of my favorite
Oh, yeah?
my favorite minor characters from 30 Rock.
Yeah.
He's good. He's like, he's just great. Can you imagine? I like a pansexual character.
Holy shit, Kat! It's like you like seeing yourself represented.
What?
What?
Insane. No, but I do really like him. Because, like, he's got so much going on in his life. And then there's this one line where Jack asks him, you know, Paul's like, so you've heard about me? And Jack's like, yeah, is all that stuff true? And he's like, you know, yeah, I don't remember what it is. He makes, like, a comment about, like, his college graduation or something, like, really mundane about him. And Jack's like, also the, like, dressing up like women. And Paul's like, oh, yeah, that's true. And it's just, like, it's, like, a fun little insight into his thing where, like, all of the things that we notice first about Paul have been part of his identity for so long.
Right.
That it's, like, the crazy, wacky thing for him is, you know...
He graduated from college or something like that.
Yeah, it's just, like, the mundane stuff that he's, like... yeah, it's true. Like, you've heard it. And it's like, I love Paul.
I bet he looks great in a skirt.
He does.
He
also looks great in 2 skirts. Because he shows up once as Jenna and Cher at the same time.
Sure.
And it was good.
Why not? Sometimes you can do that.
And then also he takes her first and last name.
That's great.
So when they get married, they're pronounced Mr. and Mrs. Jenna Maroney, which is just objectively great.
That's so...
Paul's good.
That's so trolly. I love it. I think I've been talking about Hellsing a lot lately, but I'm going to talk about it again.
What?
Because it has one of my favorite secondary characters.
I think, I'm just going to throw this out there, I think it's because you have Hellsing on the shelf
and I'm looking
in the room
at
where
it.
we record. Because it started when we started recording in this room.
Because I looked there, because that's my shelf of things that I like. But no, it does, because, Saris, is a great, she's a great vampire. It's sort of weird, because she's almost a main character, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really ends up being really focused on Alucard and Integra as the main characters. So Saris, even though, like, the series starts off with her being sired and everything like that, she sort of ends up being a side character. Yeah. But she's just, like, she's really Starky and, like, really is fighting the vampire thing at first, before she sort of learns to embrace it and use it to her advantage. Mm-hmm. And it's real good. I like it. Nice. And you don't get a real insight into her background or anything like that. You see her in that first volume, so you get backstory light for her. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's fine.
Sometimes backstory light is all you need.
Right. Backstory light just works. Sometimes. And that is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Alright.
Yeah.
Nice. So... Yeah, it's one of those, and we say this a lot, there's, like, a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into storytelling.
Right.
So, figure your shit out, know your shit, and then edit it down considerably for your audience.
Right.
Decide what is and is not appropriate for your secondary characters to reveal about themselves, or have revealed about themselves, and then decide how big of a deal to make it. Because it is not always... there's no, like, one rule that you can follow that is, like, this is when it's a good time to share this. Like, you very much have to figure it out for yourself, mm-hmm. but put the effort into figuring it out.
So, it's so you don't end up pulling a J.K. Rowling.
Also, oh boy. Yeah, can we talk about J.K. Rowling a little bit?
Yeah.
Can we talk about Joss Whedon and J.K. Rowling
mm-hmm.
a little bit? This is something, like, that I still somewhat admire about Joss Whedon is, to this day, is that, like, he knows, usually, when too much character information is too much. You know, he doesn't know when to stop a story, arguably, but he does know, like, when to stop a character arc, which I appreciate. And it's something he talked about in Commentary, the musical.
Yes.
About how we live in a society now where there are, like, so many extras, and creators are expected to justify themselves and go behind the scenes, and, you know, they're expected to have these conversations about representation and, like, nuanced aspects of story that we didn't expect, like, 10, 20 years ago. That wasn't something that we necessarily, like, depended on as we do today. In society, it's just become more about the extras than the art itself. And he sings a song about it in Commentary that I really liked. I think one of the people to fall victim to this the hardest was J.K. Rowling. And she's not doing herself any favors, but
she's really not doing herself any favors.
But I do feel really bad that she's one of the people who got pulled into the cycle, because she was very much on the cusp of when she got famous overnight, virtually. Yeah. It wasn't expected for her to have any answers beyond what we see in the series. And then she got very sucked into the aftermath of that, where she was retroactively held to a higher standard, and then also expected to justify and correct retroactively, which I think at that point the best course of action would be, like, here were my mistakes and moving forward I'll do better. But, like, she got put in a position where she, like, doubled down real hard and took the defensive, which was the incorrect thing.
Right.
And I think when you back a creator into a corner, you can kind of understand why they would do that, but this is a good example of why, as a creator, you should try not to.
Right.
Because fucking J.K. Rowling is such a nightmare now. You just, like, every time I see J.K. Rowling is trending, I just, like, my heart drops, and it's like,
not again.
Oh.
It's like, it's, honestly, if you fuck up with your secondary characters, or if you fuck up at all, it's better to just admit it than dig yourself into whatever fucking pit she's at the bottom of it right now.
Yeah.
Because, just say you didn't have a gay character, man. Just say it. I'm gonna be expectant. I would prefer you just move forward and make a new gay character than, whatever the fuck happened there.
That's like and that's one of those things where it was like, I think it would have been fine. Like, even if, out of all of the ridiculous things she said, I do choose to believe, reading Deathly Hallows, that Dumbledore was gay. That was 100% how I interpreted it. But it wasn't confirmed. So when she got called out for not making a gay character, the correct thing to do was not to be like, I hinted maybe that Dumbledore was gay, and now I'm saying it's canon. That was not correct. She should have been like, in one of the many romance arcs I had to choose from that were already included, none of them were gay, and I'll do better next time.
Right.
But, like, making it such a point of interest that we didn't need to see that Dumbledore was gay for him to be good representation was not correct.
Right.
And then, did you read that thing, like, a week or two ago, where she was like, where they were talking about Crimes of Grindelwald, and just, like, completely unprompted, she was like, like, seriously, no one was on her case for the first time in so long, and she just, like, out of nowhere was like, they had a very intense sexual relationship.
No, I did hear that.
Like, don't. Because then, and then that too came across, because then when she defended that comment, she was like, I think that she got in on the representation thing again, where it was like, it came across very strongly, like she was like, people are only mad about it because they didn't know if there was sex. And, like, gay people want to see more gay sex. And it's like, that's not... We do a little bit, but not in our children's series. That wasn't the problem.
Like, you have to understand.
Just completely unprompted.
Like, nobody needs... What are you talking about? No,
And then she was, like, trying to... And then when, like, people got mad, she's trying to defend herself that... She's like, I don't need to show them having sex. And it's like, that's not what anybody said you needed to do.
Nobody said that.
Calm down.
Stop it. Oh my god. No, because me and Ben were watching a video that was like an analysis of Crimes of Grindelwald, and that was one of the things he said, and I was like, I didn't need to know that. I really didn't need to know that. But what was it? It's also, but speaking of Crimes of Grindelwald, real fast, another thing they pointed out in the video, the magical artifact, that made it so they couldn't fight each other, looked pretty gay.
Was super gay.
It was like,
yeah.
It didn't need to look like this.
It did not.
Did you write that specifically? Is that all they have?
That's
on
her
sale?
solution to representation.
Some butt plug! No! How terrible!
This is what you wanted, right? Imagine J.K. Rowling, like, breaking onto set and putting butt plugs everywhere.
You know
this is what the gays have asked me for.
You know that one Vine that's like the guy who's like running up the stairs with a box and he trips and then a bunch of dildos fall out?
Yeah.
That's what happened on the Crimes of Grindelwald set.
That's what it feels like. And I feel so bad for it because she shouldn't have been in that situation, but she could have handled it any other way.
She could have handled it any other way.
And it would have been...
Maybe she didn't need to bring that up at all.
And then, like, also, just Pottermore. Like, the Pottermore Twitter just at least once a month sends out a thing that no one asked for about Harry Potter lore. That's just bad. And it's like, it's... At least, the one thing that I will say about Pottermore is J.K. Rowling does it a lot for characters, and Pottermore just does it for world building, which isn't good, but it doesn't, like, ruin characters. It doesn't put butt plugs anywhere.
God!
That should be their tagline. Honestly, Pottermore. No butt plugs. Right?
That's the title of this episode.
Pottermore, get back to me about being your spokesperson.
Oh.
I do good.
Oh. Am I allowed to use the phrase butt plug on YouTube? Is YouTube gonna censor me?
Yeah, we're being censored.
Neither of these words independently are offensive. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna search it on YouTube. That's gonna be bad for me.
Yeah, don't do that.
But
Crimes of Grindelwald trailer shows up.
Fuck!
But no, and that's like another thing is, if your side characters are gay, let them be gay or don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah, just like, maybe talk to a gay person ever.
Maybe talk to any underrepresented group about how you're depicting them in a thing before you do it.
If you are not part of that group, because bad things happen.
Yeah.
Like, everything bad happens. I'm not a fan.
It could be better. There's a show right now. I'm gonna talk about a show.
What?
Can you believe it? I'm gonna talk about a timely show. I'm gonna talk about Shrill on Hulu.
The fuck?
Which I really like because it has really good representation in its like minor characters and its secondary characters. I mean, arguably has good representation also just in general. You get like a lot of people that don't usually get their own shows together, but it's good. They've got good representation.
That's nice.
The main character's roommate is a black lesbian who's just very sassy and great.
Oh my god. Wonderful.
She's very... It's fun because she borders on all of these like stereotypes, but then she doesn't quite fit into any of them, and you just never know what she's gonna do. And I love it. It's good.
It's nice when you have a character that is, like, real.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, oh, they're doing this stereotype, oh, they're doing this stereotype. It's like, no. They're just sort of a person.
And it hasn't been going on that long, and she's already sort of, like, defied expectations several times, where it's like, you think she's gonna fall into, like, the sassy black friend trope, and then she's like, also, here are all my girlfriends, and you're like, yeah?
Oh.
Nice.
I like that.
This is good. Different? Am I watching a show that's different than other shows?
Huh?
That doesn't happen,
Don't
right?
ask for too much, Kat. You don't want to get burned.
I know, I'm only 6 episodes in. My hopes are too high.
It's the struggle.
But yeah, it's like, and having something like that, having characters that, like, even if they're in the background that sort of defy expectation, it's refreshing to see.
Right.
And honestly, I don't know how I feel about the main character all the time, but, like, I'm still there. I'm watching the show.
Right. And sometimes you do just watch for the secondary characters.
Yeah.
That's how it be sometimes.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say, Kat?
I don't know.
Nope, lost it.
Oh, okay.
It's gone. Forever. Goodbye.
There's some other things I wish would be gone forever.
Like J.K. Rowling's Twitter.
Yeah. I follow J.K. Rowling on Twitter, and I should not.
Why do you do that?
I should not do that. Because when I started following her on Twitter, it was better. It was a better time.
It was a more pleasant time. But yeah, I think that's about a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our J.K. Rowling butt plug podcast.
Bad.
Do we have any other advice? Is that about it?
Should we do recommendations?
Recommendations.
I don't have any more advice. I'll just
I don't have
recommend
any advice.
shit now, I guess.
Watch Castlevania. Watch Hector. He's a good boy. I love him.
As always, watch Game of Thrones. Maybe watch Shrill if you have Hulu.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. See if you like it.
Watch Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That's got a lot of fun secondary characters in it.
Yeah, there are some really good secondary characters in there.
Like White Josh.
I was gonna talk about White Josh. He's great.
Josh.
He's a good secondary character. Also, like, I really like Valencia's girlfriend. I've forgotten her name already.
But she's great.
But I love her.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine also has a lot of really great secondary characters because it's a group show.
Yeah.
And it's just got some real good times to be had.
That's true.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all of our advice. This has been Unsolicited Advice. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.